Lettura in lingua inglese da parte della professoressa Marina Fornaro della Scuola di italiano L2 Don Mimmo Amato della storia Papa Francesco e il piccolo Michelangelo. Buon ascolto.
Pope Francis and little Michelangelo. On Wednesday, April the 23rd, my wife and I arrived at 7 o'clock in the morning in St. Peter's Square. The liturgy of the translation, with the procession during which the cardinals accompanied the body of Pope Francis, chanting the litanies of the saints in Latin, began at 9 o'clock and ended at 10. We were sitting in the front right sector of St. Peter's Square, which in the space of a few hours filled with about 10,000 people. At the end of the liturgy, considering that we had been in the square since 7 o'clock in the morning, we thought we would be able to enter the basilica quickly. However, the route was completely cordoned off, and the security told us that we could not go through where we entered, but we had to go to the opposite entrance of the square and get in line. We set off and stopped in line at the beginning of Bernini's colonnade on the right. The sun was very hot, and I opened the small umbrella that I had brought in my backpack to provide shade. 2 meters away from us were two small children in their parents' arms. It was spontaneous to put them under the umbrella too and travel the entire journey together, which from 11 o'clock took us to the basilica in front of the body of Pope Francis, exposed to the public at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. During the journey, we noticed that this family was carrying two posters with photos of them together with Pope Francis. They told us their story. Edwin Bedrignana Zegarra and Marcela Pariona Bersena are a Peruvian couple who have lived in Italy for years. On March the 29th, 2023, their third child, Michelangelo, just 5 days old, suffered a skull fracture following an accidental fall and was promptly admitted to the Policlinico Gemelli. As soon as he arrived, the doctors told the family the child had a skull fracture and a blood clot. In those conditions, he was not immediately operable. They had to wait for the development of the clinical picture. The situation was obviously very critical. After 2 days, the nurses informed the mothers present in the children's wards of the Policlinico that Pope Francis, who was hospitalized at the Gemelli in those days, would come down to the ward to visit the children. Marcela, at the news, said, "What should I do? I haven't set foot in the church for years." But her mother-in-law reprimanded her. "This is a miracle. Talk to the Pope Francis and ask him to pray for your son." Marcela was the last mother in line in the ward, and when Pope Francis approached, they began speaking in Spanish, and he asked her what was wrong and how her son was. Then he said, "Have you baptized him?" She replied, "No, he's only 7 days old. We haven't baptized him yet." "Would you like it if I baptized your son now?" She was almost incredulous at this proposal and replied, "It would be an honor for me." Pope Francis asked for a basin of water, blessed it, and baptized the child. "What is his name?" "Michelangelo, Michelangelo, Michelangelo." Afterwards, he asked for a pen and a sheet of paper on which he certified the baptism that had taken place, to take to the parish priest to enter the little one in that baptismal register. So Marcela gets carried away by the story. I had distanced myself from the church and no longer went to it, but this meeting with Pope Francis changed my life. In these 2 years, we went to visit him in Santa Marta, and every time I called Santa Marta, he called me back. Pope Francis became part of our family. He gave advice like a good grandfather to my two teenage children. And now our family has been blessed with a fourth daughter. In the story, Marcella tells us about her conversion. She's so taken by this meeting that changed her life and set her journey of faith in motion again that she doesn't pay attention to the other miracle after that of the conversion. It is I who, in the video in which I interview her, met together with the students of our Italian language school for foreigners, ask her the question, what happened after the baptism? She answered, after 2 days, the doctors discharged us. They said we could go home because the danger had passed. The fracture was healing, the clot had been absorbed, and the child was fine. In fact, this testimony brings to mind exactly everything that Jesus asks in the Gospels every time he works for a healing or another miracle. Your faith has saved you. An episode, among others, after the healing of the 10 lepers, recounted in Luke 17, 11, 12. Only one comes back to thank. Jesus' consideration is strong. All 10 were healed, but only you recognized that your life had changed thanks to the encounter with me. Therefore, only you open yourself to faith and salvation. Another episode is that of the healing of the paralytic, reported among the panels of the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica. Jesus is in Simon Peter's house in Capernaum preaching, and the evangelist Mark tells us, describing the rhythms of his day in chapter 2 of his Gospel. The crowd is so large that they cannot set foot in the house. So a group of friends tries to climb onto the roof of the house, uncover it, carry it up to the roof in their arms, and lower it in front of Jesus, a bed on which their paralytic friend is lying. Jesus is struck by the faith shown. We do not know if the paralytic had any, but his friends certainly did, and says, your sins are forgiven. Only at the epilogue of the episode, to respond to those who were scandalized by these words, does he perform the miracle of healing. What is the enormous teaching of this event? Jesus, wanting to give a gift to this man, decides to give him the greatest gift, which is not, as many might expect, physical healing, but it is the grace of God that follows the forgiveness of sins. Jesus continually shifts the attention from the sign, whether it is a healing, a liberation, a miracle, to the gift of faith, which uniquely is what determines the quality of a new life. Recognizing this new life generated in faith by the encounter with the person of the Master of Nazareth is what Marcella testifies, perhaps without realizing it, by recounting the encounter of her family and of little Michelangelo with that witness of the Gospel who was Pope Francis, who changed their lives forever.